Okay, so I've owned the watch for 2 weeks now, so it's time to do the review that I've become accustomed to. This will be quite a long video. I'll do what I always do, go through the watch head, the bracelet, the clasp, the movement, and then my conclusions. So let's get straight into it. I think this watch will be comfortable for pretty much all wrist sizes, unless you've got like a really tiny wrist or a freaking huge wrist. It's 39 millimeters in diameter, 40 millimeters in diameter, but people seem to measure it at about 39 and a half, and I guess that depends on how many times the case has been polished. It's 20 millimeters between the lugs. It goes down to, I think, 16 millimeters taper, and then it goes back up to 18 where you have the clasp. It's 47 millimeters lug to lug, but just bear in mind it wears more like 48, maybe even 49, because it's male end links, so you can see it doesn't fall down right at the end. So if you say it's more like 48, 49 millimeters lug to lug, you won't go wrong. Don't expect it to be 47 millimeters like the 58 where the female end links, because it droops straight down. It will wear a little bit bigger than that. It's 12.2 millimeters thick, and 2 millimeters of that is the crystal. So it's kind of a dome on the edge and then completely flat on top. So it's a 10 millimeter thick watch, 10.2 with a 2 millimeter thick crystal, and it wears like that. It's fantastic. Size to my 7-inch wrist with a genuine Rolex Easy link in. It's 125 grams. Just for comparison, I've got a 2000, I can't remember what year it is now, 2013, 41.5 millimeter, 8500 caliber Omega Aquaterra. That's 149 grams. My Pelagos 39, which is all titanium, was 107 grams, and the Black Bay 58 is 134 grams. So hopefully that gives you a reference as to just how light this is. And that's obviously because of the clasp and the bracelet, which we'll come on to later. The case proportions, I think Rolex always get really spot on with all the ones I've seen, even the Sea Dweller that I looked at, the Batman, a Kermit. The case back just sinks into your wrist. So really all you kind of see is the mid case and the top. The mid case is extraordinarily thin. Then you've got a really nice bezel, and then the crystal. It's just really well proportioned. It's not slab-sided. The case back isn't so big the watch sits proud of your wrist. It's just a really well proportioned watch, and they seem to do that with all of their watches, no matter the size or heft of it. The polishing and brushing on this watch is pretty much on par with, I forgot to turn the light on, hang on. Boom, there we go. Is on par with Omega, IWC, Breitling. They're all very, very similar in terms of a brushing perspective. What is quite nice, and I will put a picture in, a little touches that I didn't notice until I wore the watch more. So I will put the picture in, but you'll see that there's brushing on the top of the crown, and then it's polished on the sides, which is nice. It could have just been all polished. Don't quite know why they've done that, but it's a nice thing to have. But yeah, the quality of the brushing is very, and polishing and brushing is very similar. Obviously, this has just been serviced by Rolex, so it looks almost brand new. I understand kind of why it's not brushed on the mid case, because it comes onto the polished ends of the links, but I do like the fact that Omega and other brands, IWC, have brushing on the side. It just hides scratches better, and for a sports watch, for me, that will always be my preference for a sports watch, to have it brushed on the side of the case. And then you've got this nice chamfer, brush it on, so it would have looked really nice. You can get it done yourself. I wouldn't, but there you go. When my watch was refinished by Rolex, one of the really, really nice things I like about this watch isn't, well, I was disappointed when I first got it, and you can go and watch my other video about the fact that the chamfers weren't on the case, is the fact the chamfers weren't on the case. It was serviced very, very badly by someone at Rolex, but now it does have the case chamfers, and I think it looks absolutely phenomenal. It's such a small touch, but it adds a ridiculous amount to the quality of the watch. I'll also put a picture up, because what I hadn't noticed, again, until I started wearing the watch, was that with the bezel, you can just see it there. You've got a small chamfer on top. So it's flat and brushed in a circular fashion. And then you've got a really nice chamfer right on the edge of it. And if you catch it in the right angle, which I'm not going to be able to do here, there you go. I'm going to put a picture in anyway. It really does, just again, it just adds an extra bit of shine and polish to the watch, which is really nice. Then obviously you've got the radial brushing on the bezel itself, which is a scratch magnet, less of a scratch magnet than high polish, but a scratch magnet nonetheless. On lots of these watches, because they're getting on now, the last ones were produced in 2011, you will see paint missing from the 24-hour markers on the bezel. Thankfully, this has been really well looked after. It is the original bezel, but mine doesn't have any of that missing. You know, if it happens at some point, it happens. But it's nice that in my stewardship of the watch and ownership of the watch, that's not there at the start of it. Having gone back to Rolex, like I say, the case is basically immaculate. The polishing's spot on. It's really nice sharp lugs. As everyone knows, you don't get anything on the back of it, of the case. That is a sticker they put on. But yeah, it's just really, really nicely finished because it went to a senior case finisher at Rolex. People complain about the size of the crown, which I don't understand. If you kind of look, hopefully I can get this angle, it sticks out at the bottom a bit, so you can kind of get your thumb behind it. Are you going to zoom? There you go. You can see it kind of sticks proud of the case. And the knurling on it is really nice as well. So it's very, very easy to actuate and very easy to grip, and it's not painful and it's easy to use. So I don't understand why people complain about the crown being too small or difficult to use. It's extremely easy to use. Even with the crown guards, it still sits more top and bottom of the crown guard, so it sticks out, you can see. So it's very, very easy to use. I get people might want it a bit bigger, but do you want it a bit bigger? I think proportionally with the crown guards, I think it is spot on. So anyway, I don't quite understand those comments from other reviews that I've seen. I've got no issues with it. Oh, the bloody Cyclops. I don't like the Cyclops. I've never liked Cyclopses. I know you can take it off. I don't want to do that in case I damage the crystal. I don't even want a professional to do it in case I damage the crystal. But it's just a warts. For me, it's just as bad as the helium escape valve on the Omega Seamasters. You got to get over it. Eventually, you don't realise it's there, but when you do realise it's there, remember it's there. For me personally, I do not like it one bit. So I think that's probably it for the case. I think it's an absolute belter. Dial. The dial is the main reason I bought this watch. The contrast of the white and the black, the high gloss, hour hands and the markers, the hour markers, it's just fantastic. It's super, super legible. As you know, I've tried to buy a few white watches in the past to fill the hole in my heart for a white watch, and this is just bang on. I absolutely love the legibility of it, the aesthetic of it. On the newer models, the GMT hand is really quite bold and very orange, and it really draws your attention to it, and it's got maxi plots, and the handset's massive. And for me, it's just kind of overdone, and they've had to do that to fit it into a bigger case and a bigger watch. But for me, this is a far more refined version of this model. It's the absolute sweet spot. The hands are nice and slim. That little bit of red, you don't even notice it initially, and then when you look more closely at the watch, you see it. It's very thin. It's just a really nice small pop of color to the overall aesthetic of the watch that I think is spot on. Everyone's very familiar with the handset, the Mercedes hands, the pencil hands, the arrows. The obvious nice thing is because they're all different shapes. So you've got a big triangle for the GMT, you've got the Mercedes hand for the hour, you've got the sword hand for the minutes, and then the second hand's a lollipop. They're all very easy to read at night time. They're all very distinguishable, which is obviously adds to legibility and so on and so forth. You have a mixture of kind of flatness and raised elements to the watch. So the hour markers are ever so slightly raised off the dial, which is quite nice. They're applied indices, which is good, and I do like that. The hand stack's actually quite tight on this watch compared to some other watches I've looked at as well, which is quite nice. And the hour hand is almost completely flat against the dial. But then you've got the flat kind of painted minute track around the outside of the watch. I did specifically want a watch with Rolex on the inside. I think it kind of adds to the sporty feel of the watch. I can understand why some people might not like that. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. I can understand why some people might not like that. It probably is more refined without it, actually. But I do quite like it, and it adds to the sporty nature of the watch as well. I do think there's too much text. I don't know why they do this. They do it across all their brands, in terms of all their brands, Tudor and Rolex. You don't need 5 layers of text, especially with the text that it is. Do you need to know that it's a superlative chronometer and it's officially certified? Do you? Probably not. Um, why is the model name on? You could use the case backspace to get rid of some of that and just make it a bit cleaner. Just my opinion. Not a big fan of all the text on the dial. No watch is perfect. This is close to it, but no watch is perfect. My watch has superluminova. I deliberately wanted one with superluminova. I did not want one with tritium, and you'll see why in the picture I insert. It means it still works. It's still legible at night time. It's a nice colour and hue to the superluminova, and it has good longevity. So I absolutely wanted a watch with superluminova because it's still useful. That's another thing as well. Yeah, later models have, I think it's last model year, they have slightly thinner black around the hour plots, whereas this one matches the same thickness of the black surround of the triangle. And initially I thought I preferred the thinner black around the hour plots, but then when you look at it, it's a mismatch with the triangle. So it looks more refined at first glance, but then as you spend more time with the watch, sorry, one second, you realise that it's a bit jarring almost, because it's just not quite, it doesn't work quite as well, because you've got the thickness of the surround of the GMT hand, and then the hour plots have got thinner black outline to them, which I've just never, it didn't really look quite right. And I know that because the one I had that I sent back before I bought this one was that it was a 2011 model, and it had that particular element to the dial, and it just looked a little bit odd. What else is there? I do like the high gloss. I don't like the fact that the current Explorer is all matte on the handset. It's gone too far to the tool element for me. I do like the fact that it's got high gloss. It just makes it a bit more versatile when you put the chamfers with it and the high polished edges of the case and so on and so forth. Having the high gloss markers and handset just makes it that little bit more versatile. Right, I think we're now, I'm cantering through this because I know these videos go on for a long time. The bracelet. So this is a really contentious point. Before I bought this, I had handled my friend's Kermit, so I did know exactly what I was going to get. You do not have the same tolerances that you would get on a solid link bracelet. So you can see the links do touch each other, and that's where you get that rattlesnake sound from. On solid link bracelets, they do not touch each other. But the benefit of that is weight saving. They're hollow links, apart from the end link, which is solid. So you do get weight saving, and it is more comfortable on the wrist as a result. The bracelet itself, you can see you kind of have thicker and bulkier links at the top, and then they become thinner and obviously flatter the closer you get to the clasp. This is a brand new bracelet, so it has no stretch in it. It's basically, it was brand new when I got the watch effectively. So does it feel as solid as a solid link Rolex bracelet or a Mega bracelet or a Tudor bracelet? No, it doesn't. And if that is a real problem for you, that's a real problem. I absolutely get it. You can actually fit the bracelet off the, I think it's the 16610 or something, whatever the sub is with the stubby case that was previous to the current sub. You can actually fit that bracelet and clasp if you wanted to this watch. Or you could fit that bracelet and keep this clasp, or you could fit the glide lock clasp off that watch and keep this bracelet. That would be quite cool if you wanted to do that, but that's going to cost you a lot of money to do that. And I undenied about it, but it's huge money. So I've got no problem with the bracelet. You just have to accept it is what it is. As I say, it's 20 millimeters at the top, 16 millimeters there, and then it goes down to 18 millimeters at the clasp. What is obvious, and you won't see it in this, is this has definitely been finished completely independently of the bracelet, because the brushing on it is just ever so slightly different when you look at it through a loop. So I don't know if it's done in the same factory or what, but it is ever so slightly different to the actual finish of the bracelet itself. Just directionally, it's ever so slightly off kilter. Yeah, what can you do? It's one of those things. As a result of the lightness, it does make the watch more comfortable, obviously. And I think, oh, there we go. It's the Rolex 16610. So the Submariner 16610. If you want a solid bracelet and or clasp, you can fit that to it, but be prepared to stump up the cash. The clasp, again, a really contentious point with this bracelet. It's stamped, it's light. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, and it works. Everyone knows about it. What I will say, which people don't talk about, is because it's so thin and because it's stamped, it's very, very thin of a clasp. I wish I had my mate's modern Rolex here so you could really see the difference. But it is so much thinner than the modern Rolex clasps. And as a result, you reduce the weight and you increase the comfort, and it's thinner, so it slips under dress cuffs if you want to wear it on a dressy occasion or whatever. But it does make the watch lighter, and you can see the proportions compared to the case are really, really good. It's a really thin clasp. Now, am I going to sit here and tell you this is better than a modern clasp? No, of course I'm not. It's not as robust as a modern clasp, but it's not going to cause you any problems. Once it's closed, it's closed. And it's pretty solid. There you go, you heard it, and it's closing as well. So it's very in keeping with the aesthetic of the watch. I don't have an issue with it at all. I'm not 100% convinced by, I kind of and ah about the design of the clasp. It's obviously designed to look like links, and I do quite like that, but I'm not sure if I prefer this one or the modern one where it's just flat all the way through. I'm undecided, but yeah, it is what it is. I'm, like I say, undecided on it. It's an interesting design, and it's stamped, so it's probably very easy to achieve. But yeah, obviously the cornet is completely raised and unpolished because it's a brand new watch, so that's quite nice. What I did find an absolute pig was getting a really, really perfect fit, which I do have now. It's absolutely bizarre. So each link is 10mm in length. The half links, you think would be 5mm. They're not, they're 6. The easy link, which I've got in here, which I'll show in a moment, is 5mm. And then the piece I took out, which I'll show you, is 11mm. These holes, instead of being 2mm apart, from that hole to that hole is, I think it's 4.5mm. From that hole to that hole is 4mm. Then from that hole to that hole is 3.5. And from that hole to that hole is 3. I mean, what the hell? Why aren't they just 2mm spaces? Like, so as a result, you'd be amazed how much 1mm of spacing makes a difference with a watch. And I found that out from having my, my IWC, which had the 1mm spaces on the clasp. It makes a huge difference. So what I've ultimately done is taken out this piece here. So this piece here sits in the clasp. The spring bar feeds through here, and then it goes into each side of the clasp. You then simply unscrew there and attach it to the link before it. This is a little bit loose. So what the Easy Link has done is not only given me the perfect fit, but it's actually made it less jangly, because that does make quite a big difference. Look at that though. That's on my 7-inch wrist. Do you see what I mean? It wears bigger than you would think. It definitely wears bigger than my Pelagos 39. It definitely wears bigger than my Black Bay 58. I think that's a lot to do with the white dial, stainless steel, so you haven't got a different colour bezel breaking that up. And again, it does wear bigger across the wrist. So I always thought my Pelagos 39 and Black Bay 58s were a little bit small for me, especially when I moved from my other watches. But this is absolutely spot on. It fits really, really nicely. So the Easy Link, really, really easy to fit. As I say, just the opposite of that. As you all know, you literally just pull it, and there she is. So it's just got the spring bar sitting in the top, and then you screw it into this link here. It's ridiculous. 5mm is ridiculous, but it's enabled me to get the perfect fit on my watch. And then if I have to, I can use it, but it's humongous when you do a 5mm extension on it. So yeah, the clasp is an odd one. I had to play around with half links. I had to play around with the Easy Link, but now I do have the perfect fit, and I'm very, very happy with the watch. But it was bugging the crap out of me. I think that might be it for the clasp. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, you do just have to get your head around it. Either you're going to be able to get on with it or you're not. It's part of the charm of owning one of these watches, I guess people would say. But I certainly don't have an issue with it. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Right. So I did call an authorised dealer to get the clasp, just the clasp, to see how much it would be from the 166610 or 116610. £1,300 just for the clasp. Absolutely freaking outrageous. So I'm really glad I found a perfect fit like this, because that is a huge amount of money just for a clasp. So movement is the 3186, not the 3185. Again, I specifically wanted that because it comes with a number of improvements. You get the Parachrome hairspring and a tighter gear set. So the Parachrome hairspring allows for better anti-magnetism, which in our world of lots and lots of electronic gizmos and magnets in is quite important, more than you might think. It gives better accuracy for temperature fluctuations, for extreme hots and colds. Not so important, but nice to have. And the tighter gear set means that when you move the the hour hand, the GMT hand doesn't wiggle, which it does on the 3185. Both superlative chronometers, that's not a problem, but I do appreciate those upgrades. It has a 48 to 50 hour power reserve, is what it is at the time, that's just of its time. But more importantly, it's running at pretty much 0 seconds a day, 0.2, 0.1 seconds plus a day, which is absolutely phenomenal. And what Rolex do really well is they have regulated it into the most common positions. So flat on your wrist, where your wrist is most of the time, back on your wrist, down on your wrist, and up on your wrist. They're the positions where it's at its most accurate. And my Zenith, I can't say the same for that. It is accurate. It's only minus 1.5 seconds a day, but some of those positions are the worst positions for its timekeeping. So absolutely over the moon about how accurate this thing is. That's something that matters to me personally, because if you're going to buy an expensive watch, a lot of that money these days is going into the accuracy of the movement. Everyone can make a nice bracelet and brush it well, and a case and brush it well. Really, where you're spending your money is on the dial, where it's been manufactured, the quality of it, and the movement. So super happy about that. So conclusions. Was it worth the 8-9 year wait? Yes, for me, it absolutely was. I was quite nervous I was going to get it. And then after a couple of weeks, just be like, oh, no, I've made a mistake. But thankfully, it is absolutely perfect for me. The example for me is spot on. It's a full set, box papers, brand new service from Rolex, brand new bracelet. It's basically a brand new box fresh watch. I got it at a killer price, which for me is unusual because I've lost money on every single watch I've ever bought. On this, I think I'd actually make a reasonable amount of money on it if I were to sell it, which I don't plan to. So was it worth the wait? Yes, absolutely it was. If you have any questions, as always, please let me know.